Good evening. My name is Nina Thompson, and as you know, I hope, this is the Making Life Work Project. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that you are finding something interesting and redeemable every week. And if you're not, don't tell me. Our guest tonight, is the Cheryl Dozier. If you haven't heard her name, you've probably not gone out for a while. And Cheryl's been around a long time. She's very politically astute. She's involved and engaged in a lot of things that are happening in the state capitol. And she knows everybody and knows almost everything. But I am going to let her introduce herself to you guys and just kind of tell you what she'd like to share. And then we're going to, of course, go through the question and answer session and just have a chat. We're just talking to get to know each other. But thank you so much. Let me say that
You are
first
welcome.
and foremost. I know how your time is. I know you stay busy, and I just am so honored that I could cash in on my 20-something years of knowing you and get you to come on the show, Cheryl. So tell me a little about yourself. Tell them a little about you, because I know a lot about you.
Okay.
I know a lot of good things.
Well, currently, I'm the executive director of the Missouri Legislative Black Caucus.
Woohoo!
And the Black Caucus encompasses a greater portion of the African American legislators from the state of Missouri, including the House and the Senate. We have 19 members in the House.
So you do some pretty heavy lifting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And another 6 in the Senate. The Senate, they are from our urban areas, St. Louis and Kansas City. Mm-hmm. We have one new one. His name is David Tyson Smith. He's from the Columbia area, the first African American ever from Columbia. So we are very, very proud of him and some of the things that he's doing. And he's also an attorney.
Well, that's good too.
Yeah. And so another hat that I wear is the hat of CEO of the Dozier Group International. And I do a lot of work in the arts, film and entertainment. Mm-hmm. And
you've been doing that a long time.
Yes, I have.
Because I think when I met you, I was in Jeff City. When did I go to? Well, I won't say when I went to Jeff City, but I was in Jeff City in the late 19-somethings.
Yes.
We'll say somethings.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting you then. So you've been doing that for a while. You've handled some pretty nice clients too.
Yes,
right?
I have.
Yeah. You're an old pro at it. Tell me about it. Tell us some of the people that you so they can know who we're in the presence of. Tell us that. And since I asked you, it's not bragging. It's legal to do it.
Okay.
Tell us some of the people you've worked with.
Well, I work really extensively with the, I'd say, an organization out of Los Angeles. Okay. And they handle a variety of entertainers. And then I've also done consulting work for Cedric the Entertainer. Mm-hmm. I've done some consulting work for Nelly's Foundation. I do some work for his name is Damian Hall, and he is with the R&B group Guy. Yep. And so, among with a few other entertainers here and there, it keeps me pretty busy.
And I'm just glad to be in her Rolodex. You know what I mean? So yeah, she's a busy lady, and she's very thorough. She makes sure that whatever is done 120%. I just witnessed you do an event for youth.
Yes.
Youth and young adults. Tell me a little bit about that.
That project is coming up very soon. It's from the 21st through the 24th of June, and it's called the Emerging Leaders Conference. Okay. And we do it in conjunction with University of Missouri Columbia. And we bring in students from St. Louis, Kansas City, mid-Missouri, southeast Missouri, and we bring them to the campus of University of Missouri for 3 nights and 4 days. Oh, okay. And during that time, they learn a lot of things as it regards to just growing and taking responsibility for some of the things that you do in your life, and also giving them some type of lead on maybe the educational direction that they might want to take, and we encourage educational direction. And so they will spend 3 days on Mizzou's campus, and then they have 1 day where they come up to the Capitol building, and we will be instructing them as far as how to conduct yourself during a committee hearing, how do you conduct yourself while you're on the floor if you were a legislator. And another thing that we definitely want to encourage is just participate in the political process and know where things are going and just have an idea of the things that they're doing in Jefferson City and how it affects them.
Absolutely, because we all have a choice. You can let things happen to you, or you can know things that are going to happen and participate.
Exactly.
So that at a young age, that's so valuable to be able to know that and to be able to be in the midst of that.
Exactly, and there are laws that are now in place that they can actually make sure that it's not anything now for a person to be 12 years old and say, oh, okay, 12 years old, you can't be tried as an adult. Well, everybody used to think that,
right.
But that's not the case
now. So they're well informed. They also learn how to stay.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So and I know a lot of it is leadership development,
yes.
because that's kind of the basis of some of the things that you've done that I talked to you about in leadership development. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, no, go ahead.
And we want them to learn to actually lead by working with others. We want them to be able to...
Now say that again.
We want them to be able to lead while working with others.
Well, actually, the first thing she said is by working with others.
Yes.
And I think that's head on. I think that's spot on, because people tend to think because you're a leader, everybody's going to follow you. But you lead by example, and you also lead by following.
Well, that's the Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
exactly.
Just because you're a leader don't mean everybody's going to follow you.
And actually, as a leader, it's harder. It's more difficult, even in day-to-day life.
Oh, yeah.
It's more difficult because you can't lead unless people follow you.
Oh.
So you can't just say, I'm going to decide, and you just get on this train and we're riding it.
Absolutely.
You can't,
absolutely.
So
because
that's a dynamic, right?
Everybody think they're just as smart as you are, and they think that they, so they're like, well, wait a minute, hold up. I'm the leader here. Somebody says, well, now, hey, I'm the leader somewhere else. And somebody else says, well, I'm the leader someplace else. Now, who's really the leader?
No, that's the challenge of working.
So, there you
I would
go.
say that's one of the biggest challenges of working in the Capitol.
Oh, yeah.
There are a lot of leaders, right?
Oh,
there are a lot of people who have done some very strong and successful initiatives.
Exactly.
And so just managing that for you on a day-to-day basis.
Ooh, okay.
I want to segue to a question. So what prepared you, if you were prepared, what prepared you to be successful at navigating all of those relationships and still being there after all these years?
I worked in the Capitol building as a legislative assistant for several years. And as I went through that process, I worked for legislators that were, I'd say, very, very intelligent.
Okay.
I worked for one that was an attorney. I worked for one that ended up being a congressman. I, ended up working for another, even though she has passed now, Representative Betty Thompson, and she was.
I remember she was fire.
she was a political powerhouse, and she taught me many things. And so, and then I have people like the former Representative Paula Carter. No, sorry, Senator Paula Carter. Yes. She ended up being a senator, and so I worked for a Representative Jacqueline McGee. She was out of Kansas City.
See, I remember that because that's the time I was in Jeff City. And you were doing all that power stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, I learned a lot from them. I think I was talking to one of my former bosses the other day, and I said, if it had not been for you, I may not know how to write as well as I do, because it was important during that time, which is, oh my gosh, 91, I think it was.
I'm supposed to put the number out.
Yeah, I gotta tell people, 91. And so, I think I was the only legislative assistant in the whole building who had to read the Missouri Constitution.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of people, they know that there is a Missouri Constitution, but have you actually opened it up and looked at it and said, okay, this is what this is? A lot of people have not. And she made sure that I did. And so I told her, I said, I am so thankful to you now for all the things that you taught me. Now, mind you, we didn't have spell check and all that type of stuff back then.
Right, exactly.
So with her being an attorney, I'd give her something and she'd give it back with all these red marks all over it and stuff, you know, and I'd be like, well, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on here, you know? So, and what I thought I knew, I didn't know.
Well, that's often the case.
Yeah.
You know, with life. So
yeah, and a lot of our youth nowadays, they think they know some things. But once they really get into it, they find out that things are a whole lot different than what they thought they were. Case in point, our freshman legislators that have just come into
so you know you do have to go back to work. So.
Okay. But, you know,
I get what you're saying.
They're finding out some new things. Yeah. You know, and rightfully so. So, you know, everybody, you know, has to come in and they get a first-hand lesson in politics.
And it's not. I would say that it's not for those who do not know how to master being meek a little bit, or being. You know what I mean? It's not for big egos, because that's just. I know when I first moved to Jeff City, you know, I was over there a lot because I was working for DNR and conservation and stuff like that. And you really had to approach it with the distinction that you should approach it with, because those aren't easy jobs.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of people say, what are they doing up there? They're not accomplishing it. But that's tough work.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't do it.
Yes, and some of the experiences that I had before I got there.
That's exactly, so she's right here, you guys. I was just going to try to segue to this is my question for you. How did you end up in the positions you were in, doing the work that you were doing? What was the impetus that made you say, I don't know if there was a moment where you said, this is my purpose, or what you've been doing has just fit you. But what was it as you were growing up? Or because you were from Jeff City too, right? So
I lived in Jefferson City, but I was really raised in Fort Leonard Wood, St. Robert's
area.
That's right,
I forgot about that.
I'm an Army brat.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So a lot of what I bring to the table, such as, I'd say I am really big on discipline. I am really big on knowing where you're going and not just flying around like Cedric the Entertainer says, all willy-nilly.
I used to do bumping into chairs, give a demonstration.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I...
so what do you think helps you to get disciplined, though? If I'm fresh out of college, you know, and I feel like I'm something special, got my degree, I'm on the way, I own the world. What would you say helped you to become where you are, to make it where you are?
I'd say getting those hard knocks and learning some real hard life lessons.
Okay.
And I learned those, I mean, some of them really the hard way.
And receiving them.
Oh, yeah.
That's because I know you're pretty gracious.
Oh, yeah, I received it.
You might go home and, punch it all in.
but I received it. And I looked at what caused me to be in this particular position at this particular time. And I also want people to realize when somebody asks you to do something, there's a reason why they've asked you to do it.
Absolutely.
And look at that very carefully, because, you know, a lot of it comes from who in the world thought about me to do this.
Absolutely.
And you can be happy about it. Oh my goodness, you know, this is just wonderful. They've asked me to do this and this and that. And maybe there's some other motive to that.
You know what I call it? The thing behind the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's been my life journey. It's not what I can see and what I can touch.
Yes.
That is going to benefit me or grow me or help that person. It's what's going to happen as a result of that.
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And I think you're right. We miss that sometimes.
Oh yeah,
especially
the
younger
results are
people. They miss that because
oh my gosh, our young people.
About that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, because some of them they spend a lot of time with my grandsons. You know, they spend a lot of time on the thing with the switches and all of whatever that is, you know. And so,
They were like, Grandma, what you got?
and I mean, and you can, as far as discipline, I'm a big person on discipline. And, you know, for them, I used to think the thought of maybe getting disciplined maybe by whipping or something else, you know, that my mom might have, you know, administered to me, you know. And I used to think it was the worst thing in the world.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
But these kids, they will take a beating and a licking and keep on ticking, won't care until you take that iPod or that iPad, and then the world has ended.
My sister used to be like that. She used to be the only one. We lined up for whipping. She'd be, she would never cry.
Goodness.
But you're right. It is. It's a different set of values, maybe, because I think some of our pain was that we had disappointed our parents.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And they're so independent now, and you know, they're like, no, I'm disappointed that she spanked me for that.
You know, and the choice that you make in your life, even trying to find a mate.
Yes.
That is so important. You know, so I learned very valuable lesson as far as that was concerned as well. So,
well, I won't ask you to share with you.
okay.
You can share as much as you want.
Okay,
this is about, when we talk about purpose, we're talking about the path to purpose. And primarily it's, you know, why you were created, what you were created to do, and then the amazing things that you can do. So if you don't know what your what is or why it is, then you get lost. So absolutely. Sure.
I get an extreme pleasure out of helping others. And for me, that's the blessing in me being in the position that I am, being able to pick up that phone, call somebody, and say, you know what, somebody has this problem or this issue, or they're going through this, that, or the third, and fixing that problem.
Exactly.
Fixing it. And so
I think the challenge with that is sometimes, at least for me, sometimes I get lost in it, and I forget that Nina has an agenda and Nina needs to be doing certain things.
Exactly.
And so that's, and I'm assuming you've been doing this so long, you probably have that balance, but I'm still working on that balance.
And I think a lot of us are still working on that balance. You know, as you look at your life.
Right, exactly.
You know, you get to a certain point and you said, okay, why was I here? And did I do the things that I really wanted to do? Not what somebody else wanted me to do.
That's good,
What I wanted to do.
And that's what purpose is about.
And
being in the spot that you, because that's your spot. If you get the purpose, that's your I forgot what they call it, your spot. You know, you're in the place you're supposed to be in.
Exactly.
So all that comes from that is all golden.
All that space. And so, and you know, and relish the bumps and bruises along the way, because it prepares you for later on, if you let it, and if you let God steer your path.
Right, and it's perspective too. We talk about that a lot. It's, you know, it's how we choose to respond to what comes our way.
Yeah.
If we cry about it and we whine about it, then it's a negative thing. But if, you know, we talk a lot about the thing behind the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So why did it come my way? So I have some very points. I'm gonna let you finish, but I do have some questions I want to ask you that are very pointed. So you let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. So normally what I'll do is I'll let you choose one.
Okay.
And then I'll choose one, but let me do mine first so you don't see the
Okay. All right.
Okay. I probably have two, but this is my first one.
Okay.
So, is what you are doing now in your professional life anywhere close to what you imagine you would be doing in this time, at this age, with your journey? If it is not, what would you say were the major things in your life that changed it? And we talked about that a little bit.
No, it is not.
You can say it again.
No,
people in the back.
It is not. It is not. I grew up on military installations. I was born in Fort Ord, California. We traveled to other military bases, and I thought my life would be, you know, married to a captain or a colonel, traveling the world, doing all kinds of things as a military wife.
Yes.
And right now, I'm nobody's wife and really good. So I'm okay.
Doesn't life have a way of working things out for you, right?
It really worked it out.
I'm very happily married, but I'm very happy that I waited.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things I couldn't have done.
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's a good point.
Absolutely. Like I said, those people that you choose to be in your life is so important, because a lot of times that is what may push you or may hamper you to do the good or the negative things that you may do. So that choice.
I love you said choose. You choose.
Yeah, you choose.
I used to just let people end up in my life. No, you choose who's going to be. That is a choice that you can make. That's good, Cheryl.
And I'm still trying to get better at those choices of people to have in my life, period.
Yes, absolutely.
There's people that come up to me that's, crying and, I have this and I have that and I need the other. And then I've gone out of my way to help them. And then I look at when I gotten into it in the first place, and, but wait a minute, you didn't tell me this, and you didn't tell me the other, and you didn't tell me this. So it changes the whole dynamic of why I started out trying to help them in the first place. So, before I do that type of thing anymore, I'm like, well, you know what, let's have a talk. And let's sift out, how you got here, why you're here, and
why I'm in this space with you.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're not supposed to be in that space.
Yeah.
That's good. Yep.
Yeah, but somebody was like, you know what? I need you to help my sister, but I forgot to tell you that she just, got out of prison, been there 20 years, had had all kinds of stuff going on. And did I tell you that the guy that she was with, that she got arrested with, he's also in jail, and he pulled a gun and he robbed somebody, but I just can't get my hands around somebody. Layers.
I mean, I suppose it could be flattering that people think that individuals can solve, because there used to be a moment where I was like, oh, wow, they trust me? And I realized I'm working myself to death.
Yes, exactly.
So, there's a balance between feeling like how wonderful it is to be needed and then being overextended.
And that overextension is a real thing.
That's why I put that out there for you.
Okay.
We can both chew on that a little bit.
Okay, all right. We're going to chew on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have, let me let you choose one.
Okay.
And then I will ask you one more question.
Okay.
I'm loving this, man. I've known you for a long time, and I haven't had the opportunity to just sit down and pick your brain. She has kind of tutored me along the way, but,
Okay.
I was thinking about
I'd say, what is my greatest strength?
Okay. All right.
And I would say my greatest strength is being able to, people call me the connector.
Yes, I would say that.
And I enjoy connecting individuals that may help others. And so somebody else told me, okay, Cheryl, but charity begins at home.
Well, that's true. Yeah, there has to be a balance.
Yeah,
there absolutely has to be a balance.
So how about if you, just focusing on making sure you're okay, and then going ahead and moving that towards someone else. So yes, that strength, that strength that I have is being a connector.
I haven't learned it, so I hope you do. I'm getting better at it though, but I hope you do.
So yeah, and I
don't want you to downplay that strength, that connector part, because your mind works like mine used to. I don't know if it still does. But when you see situations or you see people, you're immediately thinking, well, they need to meet this person. They need to do that. And I think what happened with me is I was doing it for so many other people, I forgot to get anything for me.
You better believe it.
So yeah, I see you. I'm just putting that out there for you, because I know you do it at a much higher level than I do.
And when somebody comes back and tell me I'm so happy because I've hooked up somebody with someone else, and then they come back and they tell me, "Oh, Cheryl, oh, thank you so much for that hookup. We really appreciate it. And girl, I got $1 million contract out of that."
Exactly.
And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you."
You gotta call me. Send me a gift card, right?
But it's more of, do you recognize within yourself that are you happy with this particular situation that you've put into play? Since you've helped someone, I always tell people, when I give you something, it is yours. I can't expect you to act the same way that I acted,
right?
Or I would appreciate it to the same level that I appreciated what you did for me.
Right, exactly. That's true.
I look at,
but can you try?
And you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Meet them
that's
where they
that's
are.
a tough one.
Because the minute you start expecting something else, you come in for a downfall, regardless of whether it's with your professional relationships, regardless of whether it's for your intimate relationships. Meet them where they are. Because 9 times out of 10, the chance is that, you may have these delusions of grandeur in your head of, this person is going to be this and this person is going to be that, and you find out, wait a minute, this person ain't nothing like I thought.
Well, let me ask you about this. So sometimes the challenge is, and then I'll check with Val and see if you have any questions. The challenge for me is, and I think for a lot of us, is how far in do I go before I lose me? So yes, I am trying to see things from your perspective. But what I find a lot is that when I do that, I always get the short end. So it's not you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I figured you know what I'm.
Yeah.
So when do you say, look, I'm just showing up. I'm not going to be concerned about those issues with you, or the issues around what we're dealing with. I have to take care of Nina.
Okay.
So that's for me the challenge sometimes, where that line is, because you can give and give and give, or you can yield and yield and yield, or you can understand and understand and understand.
Yes, exactly.
Until
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Okay,
it makes real sense. And as I move forward, I have to, what am I comfortable giving?
And that's tough. Do you always know that? Or
no, you don't. You don't always know what you're comfortable giving.
Right.
You may start out being comfortable, but once you get later on down the road, you may,
I did all that.
you may look back and say, wait a minute, now hold up. So I'd say you have to be comfortable, and then if you get to a place where you're not comfortable, don't be afraid to speak that truth.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't be afraid to speak it, because if you let it, I tell people all the time at the Capitol building, if you don't take care of this now, and you let this fester, and you could be in for a rude awakening.
Absolutely.
So whatever you got right then, nip it in the bud, handle it, and then to the best of your ability, move on.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And that's tough too, because I used to be that person that when it got there and I needed to handle it, I had the conversation, but then, she's so mean. So you're right, you just have to be comfortable with who you, and I'm at a place where I'm very comfortable with who I am. So you have to be comfortable with who you are and not hear the noise, because people are always going to come at you.
And there's big noise.
Yeah, there is a lot of noise.
Big noise.
Whole lot of noise. Okay, Valerie, do we have any questions that have come in? You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes, and questions for you, Ms. Dozier. One, in the beginning, you talked about the conference. How many attendees you guys normally have?
Yeah, we normally have about 100 attendees, but this year we've lowered that number because the budget is just not there to support what we did previously. You know, there's a lot of things that are going on within upper, our higher education systems. You know, they're going through a lot of changes. And I pray for our kids that they are able to go, for one thing, achieve that higher education.
Right.
And then while they're there, learn about, okay, this is where I need to be headed with my life. Learn that. And then also look at how you're going to help others. You know, it's not all about just helping yourself.
Right. That's
Because I believe the gift is in being a gift to someone else.
Right. Absolutely. That's good. Yep.
Is that what you were looking for?
No, that's fine.
Not
Okay.
me per se, but
Okay.
great answer.
Okay.
Another question regarding, because you guys work with students. What's your view?
We can hear.
What's your view regarding usage of AI? Artificial
I don't have one.
intelligence.
I haven't registered on that yet. Right?
I do.
I know.
I
I'm
do.
joking. Yeah.
And you know what? I love it.
Do you?
I love AI. Now, some of my friends in the entertainment industry, you know, they're going to have to learn how to, I think, grasp a hold of that AI stuff. What they are most concerned about is, you know, you can look at a person's face, and you can actually hear their voice talking, but it's not really them. So these entertainers are like, well, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. You mean to tell me they can have somebody up there that looks like me singing my song, you know, getting the credit for something that I have done, and now all of a sudden I'm nowhere in the picture, and I can't even get a royalty check? So.
It is going to be tricky about a lot of stuff like that.
And
right?
you know, and AI has been around for a long time. You know, before we got a hold to it, I think it came around, back in the 80s or something like that, AI came into play. And I think people who have, I'd say, imaginations are able to put those, imagine what they see in their mind, they're able to put it into reality. At least, you know, for what,
And not think it's hard either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people under 40 use it.
Yeah, I don't like it when it comes to, you know, I think some of it is making our kids lazy.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
I am a big proponent of knowing how to spell and knowing how to read.
Or even being challenged in your thought
Yeah,
process. Yeah.
exactly,
That's
exactly. So as we move through AI, it's not teaching our kids where a comma needs to be placed because it already places it there for them. It's doing everything for them. And one of the things that we as parents and grandparents and teachers and stuff, you know, it's not a good thing to have somebody else do your homework because you need to know how to do it. I feel great angst that our kids don't know how to write their names. They can print them, but they weren't taught cursive writing, and they don't really see the need for it. You know, I said, well, I asked one of my grandsons, I said, well, how you gonna sign your name? Well, like this, Nammy. And he prints his name. I'm like, well, wait a minute, hold up.
That's funny.
That's not a signature, you know, so.
And that's kind of scary with all the crime that's happening and stealing identities and stuff.
Girl, please, I mean, really. I said, so as a grandmother, I have been witnessing all of this. And then I'm thinking, by the time my great-granddaughter gets here in a couple of months, you know, I'm like, well, where is she going to be
Wow.
20 years from now? You know, And I'm just a little nervous about it. While I like AI, there are some things with that stuff that is really...
It's a little invasive.
You don't know whether what you're looking at is real
Yeah.
or what.
Exactly.
You know, so but yes, I like AI.
Right.
You come up with some pretty cool stuff.
Conditions on it, but I like it.
Yes, yes. A friend of mine did some
That's good.
really wonderful things. I have another client. His name is Victor Wong, and he's out of Austin, Texas. And he is one of the greatest computer music geniuses I have ever seen. And he has started using the AI stuff. But I will tell you that, and I brought up this gentleman for a particular reason, because he knew that people like Timbaland and the producers needed to be able to produce music while they're touring. You know, it used to be so they could only come in and produce music while they were in a music studio. But now there's this, he called it the Miko and Nico Timbaland. And Timbaland actually said, well, I can travel the country and still produce music. And so that's one of the big things that he, and how you might really be familiar with his stuff that he's done is that he's worked very closely with Snoop. And then he also, and this is one of the things I'm most proud of with him, is that, remember when Prince did the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay. And had all that rain coming down. And everybody was like, wait a minute, this is so cool. But people in the background said, wait a minute, it's raining on all this electrical equipment. And so that equipment that Prince was using was Victor's equipment.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so he guaranteed it for, you know, a certain length of time. He said, okay, if you guys aren't off that stage in so-and-so time, you're going to have a problem here. You know, so, and so I'm looking for him to do some really, you know, fantastic things as far as AI and stuff is concerned, and what will he come up with for the future. So he's one of those great minds that I look to when I have these doubts in my head, and then I go to him, and I say, well, Victor, you know, what do you think about that? He says, well, I think you know the answer. You're just looking to me for confirmation. I said, well, you're right.
That's that's encouraging. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, exactly. He said, you know, I trust you with your path. And he said, you're going to be just fine. And so that's what I say to that.
One more question here. You have an extensive career within Jeff City.
Yes, I do.
How did you manage your career and your personal life, raising your kids, back and forth? You know, we know that being in Jeff City, that's political. How was that in managing?
I had people to help me. I cannot tell you the number of people that came to my rescue when I really needed some things. And so as I started at Lincoln University when I graduated from high school. I went to Lincoln for a while, dropped out because I thought I was in love, got married.
Well, you were in love.
Had babies. And then I decided, you know what? What my mom had been telling me all along was so, that you've got to have an education in order to move forward. She said, make no mistake with that. My mom, she grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. My grandmother grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. And my grandmother, she focused on the fact that, you know, for her grandmother, they weren't allowed to read. You know, they could get in a lot of trouble for even learning how to read. And so she said, and for our kids to take that for granted,
Yeah. Yes.
what we went through and what we died for, to not utilize it, she said, is criminal. That's what she said. She said, and it's a shame that a lot of people, if you don't get that education and if you don't have that foundation along with a positive trajectory in your life, that you may see things not turn out quite so well.
That's true.
And I had to learn that I better take my butt back to school and learn something. You know, so some people say, well, you know what, Cheryl? They said, okay, they taught us a lot of different things as far as math is concerned. They taught us trigonometry. They taught us algebra. They taught us this. And where are we ever going to use that again? Well, believe me, you know, if you're making any kind of money, you better learn how to use those numbers and use them correctly.
And I thought you had to think
Yeah.
for
yeah.
yourself. So that's, you know what I mean? A lot of times we have that
And that's
conversation.
one thing Lincoln University did. Lincoln
Yes.
University taught me about life. You know, and so one of my really good friends, Joe Torrey, we've been friends for many, many years. He went to Lincoln University, Lincoln alum, now an actor and producer, that type of thing. And he said, Cheryl, he said, one of the biggest things about Lincoln University, sure, they gave us an education. And we put our education up there against anyone else's. But Lincoln taught you about life, which is what some of these other universities, they're so busy attaching a number to you. They forget to be connected with you and teach you about what's going to happen in your life. So, is that helpful?
Stuff, Cheryl. Yeah, good stuff.
And lastly, it was a comment regarding, since Dr. Thompson is always referring to make your life work and purpose, the answer to your question, what is your greatest strength, is also your purpose.
Yes.
That's how I came across. So it was a comment saying your
Oh,
strength.
well, you know what? I am happy to hear that because, yes, and if I can convince one kid, to go in their path, I think it's all worth it. Because there are so many of our children out there nowadays that are just lost.
I say that all the time. That's funny.
Yeah, they are.
It's not funny that they're lost. It's funny that
they
you know, it's a common thought.
are
you know?
lost. And it just takes some prayer, it takes faith, and it takes really knowing how to think. A lot of our kids don't know how to think. I need for them to learn how to think. And sure, you can follow someone to a certain degree, but how do you know when not to follow that person? You know, thank God a lot of us God has given us the gift of discernment. And as we use that particular gift, you know, are we focusing in on, you know, what we decide, how is it affecting others in our lives? So I try to affect people in a positive manner and not so all about the negative. You know what, okay, you can say, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did the other wrong. Now let me tell you what you did right.
It has, I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Uh-oh,
I think the internet dropped.
that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to these children that are going to be coming to the Capitol building. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the things that they have to say. One of the interesting things, we talk with these kids, all of them, before they come to the, before they participate in the program at all. They have to fill out applications
So
and the
there's
whole nine
approvals.
yards. Yeah.
Okay.
And so and we ask them if there was one thing that
Recording
we
in
would like,
progress.
if there was one thing that we would like for, that you would like to see change in your communities, what would that be? I was absolutely stunned when I heard them say, you know, if they could just pick up the trash in our communities. I say, pick up the trash. So you have to think, for me, living on a military base all my life, you never saw no trash. There was no such thing. You know, and to hear kids complain about trash, and I thought, okay, this is one of the things that
That's
we need
something that
to
we give them credit for.
that we need to
Right.
focus in on, because you think about it, when they walk out of their front door at their
Yes,
home,
exactly.
when they walk to
Exactly,
school,
Cheryl.
when they walk back home from school, you don't know what they're seeing, and you don't know what goes on in their lives that affect the way they see the world.
Right.
And if you
exactly.
see tons and tons of trash every day, what type of message does that really send to our kids?
Absolutely.
So
That's
I'd
it.
like
That's
for us
it
to
on.
focus on some things that our kids would like to see
Right,
changed.
exactly. Good, good, because that's good. It matters what you
Okay.
see when you leave your house.
Oh, yeah.
It matters a lot, because if you see trash, then you live in a trashy neighborhood, so you must be trash yourself.
You better
you
believe
know,
it.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's good, sure.
Yes.
All right, was there
Okay.
anything, thank you, first of all. I want to make sure that I thank you again.
You are welcome.
I am so glad that the universe and God saw fit to reconnect us.
Yes, yes, I'm happy about that.
I am too. I think we bring out the best
Yeah.
in each other.
And I'm looking forward to us doing some really great
Absolutely.
things. So I am anxious to see what the years ahead of us hold. One of the things that I do want to see, before we start this particular interview, I want our kids and our people to remain weather aware. We are going through some
Yeah.
tumultuous times with the weather. For years and years, people thought that, oh, a tornado will never hit St.
Exactly.
Louis.
I was thinking about that yesterday, sure. That's so funny.
And it did.
Yeah.
And so I have been focusing for the last 2 years on making people more weather aware and telling anybody, you know, it's gotten so that people are calling me the weather girl. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I want people to know that this weather is getting ready to get dicey. I need for them to know that, you know, if a really large tornado is coming, you know, maybe it's best that they find a place that's underground, because you might not survive above ground. So I want people to start thinking about that safe space.
Right.
Where are you going to go in the event of a major disaster? What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? And if you're a youth, you know, look at your mom and dad or whoever's there in the house with you. Say, look, where are we going to go if something really bad happens? What are we going to do? We need to find that space.
Yep.
So I'm going to leave you with find your space. Okay.
That's excellent, because that's the summary of exactly what we're talking about when you talk about purpose.
Yeah.
Again, it's what you were born to create,
Yeah.
what you were born to do, and the impact that
Yeah.
you're going to bring. So absolutely. It's a good segue.
Okay.
Thank you again, Cheryl.
Okay.
And thank you guys for listening in. I hope that, well, I know that you found some tidbits to take with you. And
I hope so.
I know they have. And we hope that some of this conversation and some of the videos we've done will help you to make your life work. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Bye, Cheryl.